Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Basel Pod. Sam Basel joined alongside Michael DeRosa and Riley Frain. And guys, Selection Sunday was last night. We're 1 day away from the first four, 3 days away from the first round proper of the 2026 NCAA tournament, tipping off all around the country. We're going to be breaking down all four regions. We're going to talk about favorites. We're going to talk about top matchups, some sneaky underdogs, and get a mid-major perspective from Riley Frain of the always great Mid-Major Madness. DeRosa, it's been a little over 24 hours since I last talked to you face-to-face. First of all, just want to get how you're doing on this fine Monday evening.
Sam, I'm doing all right. Staying positive, testing negative. You know the vibes.
Absolutely. And Riley, you spent the last week in Pittsburgh covering the Atlantic 10 tournament at PPG Paints Arena, where VCU took down Dayton in the championship game to win their third title in the last 4 years. How was that week, and what do you feel like is just one quick thing fans should take into account for this VCU team?
Absolutely, an absolute blast over in Pittsburgh. We had a lot of upsets in the early rounds. I think five of the six first games we had lower seeds winning.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of big upsets for those who didn't know. Mark Schmidt sort of making his retirement tour there at the A10 tournament, and St. Bonaventure going on a bit of a run. Really exciting. A lot of fun games all around. I think my one big takeaway is just how strong VCU is. I mean, I'm sure we'll dive into it on the show, but I think they're a team that could potentially win a game, maybe even two in the tournament here if things sort of fall well for them. But yeah, they really blew me away. It seemed like even if they didn't win the A10 tournament, I hope the selection committee was kind of taking some notes from how well they played, particularly in the semifinals, and then obviously a double-digit win in the championship over Dayton. So yeah, really exciting week over in Pittsburgh for the A10 championship. Definitely really impressed with the way VCU sort of ran away with the championship, and obviously you mentioned it, Sam, the way they've despite a new head coach sort of staked their claim of consistency in the A10.
Yeah, VCU's last three A10 tournament titles in the last 4 years each have come under a different head coach, so that's very, very exciting. But let's get into it. Here is our 2026 NCAA tournament graphic if it decides to load, and there it is right here, folks. One thing I feel like people talked about going into this year's Selection Sunday, one of the weaker bubbles that we've seen in recent years. It felt like, I don't want to put words in the selection committee's mouth, but I feel like they might have been able to make this bracket Thursday or Friday based on how some of these games shook out. Obviously, there were some down to the wire moments. Obviously, Miami of Ohio obviously being a big shakeup. VCU, getting the automatic bid over a team like St. Louis, who did eventually get in. But for the most part, the first four out were kind of expected. The last at-large teams in were pretty expected, and there really was not a lot of arguments to be made about people deserving a spot more than others. Real quick, DeRosa, Riley, starting off with you, DeRosa, just thoughts on this bracket, and despite a weak bubble, can this bracket produce an exciting tournament like we've seen in years past?
It's March. When does it not produce an exciting tournament? There's always going to be something like that. Of course it will. Just general thoughts on the bracket. I thought the most interesting part was that if we were just talking about the A10, if VCU had lost, the committee had said they would not have made the tournament. I thought that's the most interesting part.
Yes.
If there was another bid stealer, the way they phrased it, I think I forget the head's name. I apologize. I think this guy runs the Sun Belt. He said something like, he really did a good job of differentiating what they mean when they say like putting teams in versus seeding them, and how Miami, Ohio, even despite being like the last at large, would have still been in the tournament had there been another bid steal. They would have taken SMU's spot because Miami, Ohio was deserving on being selected, but then when it came to seeding, they lost in like some of the metric stuff that like matters for seeding, but not getting into the tournament. But I thought the most interesting part was VCU would have missed the tournament, and South Florida would have missed it had they not won on that Sunday, which I guess I understand South Florida. I would not have understood VCU not being selected. I thought that team was good enough.
Yeah, it feels like, although we don't have a lot to complain about with this bracket, it feels like we were on the verge of having some really dicey decisions by the selection committee. And that Sun Belt commissioner, obviously, his name is Keith Gill. All right, so let's get into breaking down the regions, starting off with the East region. I don't know if you guys agree. I mean, I feel like this is kind of a term that gets popularized in a lot of soccer tournament conversations, but if I had to pick a region of death, it really does feel like this East region. Top seeds, obviously Duke at the 1, UConn at the 2, St. John's and Northern Iowa in the 5 and 12 matchup, and then Kansas the 3 seed, Michigan State. Kansas the 4 seed, Michigan State the 3 seed, rounding out that top part of the table, and then 6 Louisville. Just a very, very strong all-around group. Riley, for you, I mean, who are the real difference makers that kind of jump out in this bracket for you? Obviously, you got Duke, the number 1 overall seed, but who else?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you mentioned it being really top heavy. It's hard to ignore UConn. It's hard to ignore Kansas, of course. I think the thing that jumps out for me is St. John's at 5. Of course, it was a weak year in the Big East, but them sort of grabbing the regular season and the conference championship title. You kind of thought maybe they'd be a little higher seeded coming in, and I'm sure they'll take that sort of as a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and feel like they can't make a run and maybe meet up with Duke. A little bit later in the bracket, but some exciting mid majors here who I think could win a game or two here. I know Louisville has some injuries. I haven't seen a ton of them this year, but I think South Florida will have a good chance to match up against them. I love what Brian Hodgson's doing down there. Was lucky enough to cover them this year, and just a team that I think is really impressed in the American. And Cal Baptist too, for those who aren't too familiar with the eccentric scoring of Dom Daniels, and a tough draw in the first round there against Kansas, but I think the sort of March Madness sort of grapples onto one player every year, and if Cal Baptist makes some noise in the first round here, I think Dom Daniels could definitely be the guy whose fans sort of latch onto. I mean, averaging 20 points per game, one of the leading scorers in the nation, just a guy who's a ton of fun to watch, and definitely someone I think fans who are tuning into that 4-13 seed game are going to enjoy getting a look at. So yeah, a couple exciting mid majors here. You mentioned it, Sam, really top heavy, which I think makes it tough for maybe someone to get a big run here, but excited to see how it plays out for St. John's. I think that 8-9 matchup between TCU is exciting, and what Jamie Dixon's been able to do of late. So yeah, real top heavy East, but some solid mid majors here too that I'm definitely going to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, a big conversation. Talking about St. John's specifically. That I've been seeing a lot is talking about teams that might be underseeded and teams that might be overseeded. And one that's kind of gone up for debate here is obviously St. John's being in the region with UConn, lower than UConn, in a year where they beat the Huskies 2 times, one of them being most recently in the Big East Championship game. DeRosa, obviously you're one of our hosts for the fantastic Road to the Garden pod. You follow this conference very closely. We've talked about this matchup, me and you specifically, a lot this past week. Do you feel like St. John's getting a lower seed than UConn is fair?
Yeah, if St. John's wanted a better seed, they should have done anything in the non-conference.
Yeah.
They should have won those games. They blew a huge lead to Auburn, if I remember correctly, and the Auburn team didn't end up making the tournament.
Yep.
Should have just won that game. Don't lose dumb games in the non-con. You could be a better seed. They were a very good team when it ran out in conference play. And I also just think they match up with UConn very well. Just the way they're able to put pressure on the ball, and just it really took UConn out of all the intricate actions they want to run. I just think they're a good matchup, and they're able to out-athlete the rest of the Big East, which was a very down year for the league. Yeah. I don't know. I think if they wanted to be a better seed, they should have done something, in the non-conference before we got to conference play, and they finally were able to beat UConn 2 out of 3 times.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously St. John's, by nature of being the 5 seed, they kind of fall into what a lot of bracket makers like to feel like is the general trap game, right? 12 seeds do have, a history of taking down 5 seeds. Against Northern Iowa, where could St. John's possibly slip up? And where do you feel like maybe their advantages might outweigh a 12-5 upset in this region?
I think Northern Iowa is going to keep this game very competitive. I think Northern Iowa could win. They're, of the 12 seeds, I think they're the most likely. We will talk about the other ones later, of course. But I think with this Northern Iowa team, what they do really well is they're a pack line defense, right? They don't give up any paint touches, which is how St. John's wants to beat you. And they really slow the game down, which is St. John's wants to beat you in transition. If Northern Iowa is able to control the game doesn't get out in transition, St. John's half-court offense is mediocre. It's fine. And another thing Northern Iowa does very well is they force you to shoot threes. St. John's, they have more shooters this year with Isaiah Sellers. He's been in and out of the lineup lately. Josen Sanon, who every single time. It was that weird clip in the press conference. He says his threes is Coke butter cheese. So it's Coke butter cheese whenever it goes in. And then Ian Jackson also in and out of the lineup completely. Those guys are going to have to hit shots if St. John's is going to win this game. Northern Iowa is going to double down on Zuby. They're going to do everything they can to prevent paint touches. And yeah, if you want to beat them, you have to hit threes. And another thing St. John's does is they press you full game, right? It's a ton of size, length. Northern Iowa's starting guard is Trey Campbell. He's 6'4". Mm-hmm. Like, he's not going to be phased by that size and length. And he's a veteran. He's seen this before. Maybe he hasn't seen it to this extent. If he's turning the ball over, I think this is kind of a St. John's blowout. But if he's not, and Northern Iowa is controlling the pace of this game, and it comes down to half-court execution, they're going to be live in this game. And one of my favorite players, I'd almost say in the country, Leon Bond, he's a wing. He's athletic. He was brought over by Virginia originally at high school. I think he was kind of brought over to play that DeAndre Hunter role that they had, just to be that guy off the bench who would eventually evolve into that starter. He wasn't as good as DeAndre Hunter, obviously, but I think that dude is a pro's pro. He is long. He does literally everything you could ask him to. I think Northern Iowa was very live in this game. I think this is a bad match for St. John's.
Yeah, absolutely. According to Ken Palm, Northern Iowa is the third best defense in the country when it comes to guarding the three. Riley, another mid-major that I really like here, not necessarily like to win, but just one that I really am excited to watch, North Dakota State against Michigan State. Obviously a FCS powerhouse that's recently making the jump to FBS for all the college football fans here. What could fans who are not really familiar with this North Dakota State team take into this first week of tournament action?
Yeah, incredibly balanced team. I think quite literally they're top 130 in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency, pretty even in both those categories in terms of Ken Palm. And they sort of tore through conference play late in the season. I'm pretty sure they only picked up 2 losses in conference play, at the very least from January to February. Tore apart the conference tournament and beat most of their opponents by double-digit margins outside of the conference championship game. And sort of ran through the Summit League this year. So a really good two-way team. Trayson Anderson for them. He's been fantastic. He gets a high usage percentage there, but he's efficient with the ball. He gets on the boards really well because he brings a ton of size and physicality at 6'9". But a youthful guy who maybe hasn't quite been in a situation like this yet. So excited to see what they can do. Obviously, a Michigan State team, that's always going to be a tough matchup for, a young and experienced team, but North Dakota State, not a team we haven't necessarily seen, in March before, but, going on to have I'm pretty sure one of their best seasons in program history with 27 wins. So yeah, just again, a tough matchup. I like what they're able to do, during the regular season, in conference play, just again, 2 losses, 27 wins overall, Summit League regular season champs and conference tournament champs. Again, drawing sort of a tough matchup here. With Michigan State, but yeah, keep an eye out for guys like Damari Wheeler-Thomas, probably their leading scorer, really eccentric scorer, a little bit of an undersized guard, but sometimes those are guys who make a little bit of magic in March and almost shooting 40% from 3-point range. So he's a guy who is going to hopefully be able to keep pace offensively for them. And again, they'll rely on a guy like Trayson Anderson inside to sort of hold down the physicality against a Michigan State team that is pretty well coached and is always going to be a challenge, whether it be inside and tough and physical and everything like that. But yeah, to your point, Sam, it's always going to be an uphill battle for sort of that 14 seed to make an upset, particularly against a team like Michigan State in March with Tom Izzo and everything that goes into that. But yeah, a lot of size, a lot of physicality in a historic season for a North Dakota State team. They run a solid offense as well, not particularly with a ton of pace, but just a ton of overall balance and two-way solidity on both ends of the floor for them. So it'll be a tough matchup, but a North Dakota State team that people should definitely tune into and keep an eye on because they can score with the best of them when they need to. And yeah, they're when they're playing at their best, they absolutely ran through Summit League conference play this year.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a great breakdown of this North Dakota State team. Final question before we move on to the next region. Obviously, like I said at the beginning, so many top 25 teams in this one region alone. Should fans of whoever comes out of this region be a little bit worried that they might be a little bit tired going into the Final Four? Obviously everyone gets, 5-6 days of rest before, between the Final Four and the Elite Eight. But, is this possibly the toughest region to come out of, DeRosa?
Toughest, I'd say, sure. I mean, obviously, it depends on how the bracket shakes out, right? Like,
Totally.
depends on how the games go. I really think is the real answer to that question. But I mean, it's definitely going to be. It's never easy to win 4 games against high quality teams. Like, even for a team like Duke, let's say they beat CN in the first round, of which they should, right? You're playing either Ohio State, who has been on fire lately, or TCU, who has played up to Michigan, Florida, I believe they beat Iowa State, excuse me, and Texas Tech. Like, they've played up to those teams. Or, yeah, and then after that, Kansas is Darren Peterson, who could be the number 1 pick in the draft. St. John's, we just saw beat UConn, dominate UConn twice. Like, it's not going to be an easy road. And then you got to play UConn, a team who's won 2 titles, or Michigan State, a team who plays everybody well. UCLA, maybe, team, I mean, if Donovan Dent's on, one of the best guards in the country. Like,
if they're happy about their travel, accommodations. but yeah.
But yeah, could go anyway. Ooh, my band fell.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to our next region, the South region. Top seed, reigning national champs, the Florida Gators. Houston is the 2 seed, Illinois the 3. Their 5 through 12 is SEC runner-up Vanderbilt taking on 12 seed McNeese. 6 and 11 is North Carolina versus that very hot VCU team that we've talked about. And then, a great matchup in between St. Mary's and Texas A&M in the 7 and 10. Let's get right into it. Riley, me and you, both A10 guys, we both have a lot of experience talking about this conference. We teed up VCU at the beginning of the show, but now going up against North Carolina, what can you expect these Rams to do against the Tar Heels? How could they possibly slow them down en route to a trip to the second round?
I mean, listen, I can't say I've watched a lot of UNC this year. It's just sort of the mid-major sicko in me where, I'm tuning into mostly mid-major basketball most of the time, I would say. But I'll tell you what VCU does well, and that's they get up and down the floor, they score it with efficiency, but they bring it on both ends. Sort of the theme of the A10 this year has been teams that are shooting the 3 well, but also they're not afraid to attack the basket. I mean, the sort of the new Ken Pom stat that's been big this year is average 2-point distance, and VCU is one of the leading teams in the country in that statistic. But they back it up with 3-point shooting from the perimeter too, between guys like Terrence Hill, between guys like Barry Evans, Nick Lewis, who was A10 freshman of the year and was just phenomenal in the conference tournament the past couple weeks. Jadrian Tracy, who's been a real spark plug for them, and sort of Phil Martelli over the last week at the A10 tournament talked about the way his defense sort of translates to offense for them, and he helps to set the tone there. And then sort of the focal point of it all has kind of become Lazar Djokovic on the interior, 6'11", got a ton of size, a ton of physicality. I mean, he's one of the leading offensive rebounders in the nation in terms of offensive rebounding percentage. But he shoots it effectively too because he gets to the rim so easily. I mean, the guy's huge. He can carve anyone up on the interior like butter for the most part at the A10 level. And sort of the combination of all that depth and all that offense and sort of the two-way ability they have, I think should give them a real chance against a team like UNC. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you guys about, maybe what UNC has to offer, but just a really strong two-way team in VCU that's playing some of their best basketball. I mean, we set it up a little bit in the intro, but really, really sort of ran away with the A10 title between a double-digit win over St. Joe's in the semifinals and then beating Dayton by double digits and really running away in the second half. And then, I mean, really from early January to early March in regular season conference play, they only picked up a lone loss, that being to St. Louis, another team, we'll be talking about here because of their at-large qualification to the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, I think this is an interesting draw for VCU here. They play it with a lot of tempo. They don't really hold on for the ball for too long, but they don't really turn it over a ton either. And they're really effective with the ball, or efficient, with the ball in their hands. So a strong two-way team. I think that'll give them a good shot against UNC, and hopefully if they advance, maybe even a good shot against an Illinois team. I don't want to look too far ahead, I suppose, but I think that gives VCU overall a pretty good shot at least winning one game in the tournament here potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big question for UNC, obviously. Not really the big question, but the big narrative around UNC, obviously, is the absence of Caleb Wilson, who's been out with an injury. He has not played since February 10th, and without him, UNC has gone, 5-3. They lost in their opening game in the ACC tournament to Clemson by a point. So, DeRosa, where has North Carolina looked to replace that efficiency from Wilson, and has it succeeded? And are they ready? Has it gelled enough for a tournament run?
I mean, it's kind of been balanced. They obviously haven't been as good without a lottery pick, right? Like it is different, but I mean, I have some of the numbers in front of me. I was looking at it earlier.
Please.
This won't directly answer your question, but like it'll give an overview of the game. Where I don't know if VCU really has an answer for Henry Vassar, where I imagine they're going to go mostly to try to replace him in that interior production, just because like I don't think Djokovic is a great post defender, where he can step out and hit a three. He rebounds offensively very well, as Riley alluded to. I don't think he's that like physical defender. I think he's really like kind of falls apart when teams are able to body him down low and like get paint touches and just put it up over him. But since like Wilson's gone out, just looking at his on-offs on Hoop Explorer, they force substantially less turnovers. They are worse on the glass, which Djokovic could get to, and they foul a lot more. Teams have been worse from three with Wilson off the floor than on, which I really just think truly is variance. And VCU is a team that really is going to like go at UNC's drop coverage. UNC does a lot to keep the ball in guards' hands. And where guys like Terrence Hill, who I think is an absolute stud, Nick Lewis, as you mentioned, was the freshman of the year in the league, Adrian Tracy, Brennan Jennings, I like his game a lot too. Teams are able to hit mid-range jumpers against UNC. Teams shoot 5% better from the mid-range with Caleb Wilson off the floor versus him on, and they shoot 7%. And UNC, is 7% worse offensively at the rim without Wilson versus with Wilson. So, yeah, if you look at it since February 1st, VCU is a slight favorite in this game. If you go by Torvik, they're a 1-point favorite in this game. I lean VCU in this one. I think Vassar is the tough matchup, but when it comes down to the guards, I think Terrence Hill's a bulldog, and it's going to be very fun because Nick Lewis and Derek Dixon, who is UNC's starting at this point, I believe he's a starting point guard. They were on the same team as each other, both with team takeover with AAU ball. Mm-hmm. And in high school, they both played at Gonzaga. So they're high school teammates matching up against each other in the first round of the tournament. I think that's a very fun narrative, but I think the guards for UNC are just not as good as VCU's guards, despite I do think Dixon was better than Lewis on those teams, but I think Terrence Hill's the best guard in this game, and I think he's going to have a real impact. I got VCU in this one. Their length on the wings, too, I think is enough to get at least annoy UNC, where if UNC had Wilson, I would take UNC, but they don't, and that's what we're picking.
Absolutely. The next team I wanted to talk about in this region, reigning champs of the college basketball crown, the 4-seed Nebraska Cornhuskers, going up against the 13-seed Troy. DeRosa's laughing because literally right before this podcast, me and him had probably like a 45-minute text conversation about our thoughts on the crown, which maybe we'll save for another time. But long story short, it's not great. We don't love the crown this year, especially their
every Big East team but Creighton turned it down. That's enough.
Yeah. So long story short, probably not the best field, but give it a watch if you got the time. But Nebraska, what do you like about this team, and how can they avoid an upset against Troy?
I think this game, it's very simple. Both these teams shoot a ton of threes. I think this game completely comes down to who makes more threes. The Moss matchup, I think it's the toughest for Troy. But if this is probably the longest shot upset I'm thinking about. It comes down to three-point shooting. It's going to be a three-point shooting contest. Nebraska's a great shooting team, but like as they've hit deeper into conference play and they've gone on a little bit of a drought, teams have been able to hit threes against them, where at the beginning of the season, teams just weren't making anything against them. Part of it luck, part of it their defense has just gotten a little bit worse. If Moss is able to create, I do think they present some real troubles for Troy. And if they're hitting shots, they present troubles for anybody. But yeah, this is what I'm looking at. I think Troy's going to do enough to compete on the glass. I think Nebraska will force enough turnovers, but if it comes down to just three-point shooting, underdogs can hit threes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Nebraska, really interesting team. Started off the year 20-0, finished. They're entering the tournament 26-6. They lost their opening Big Ten Conference Championship game to Purdue, the eventual champions of the tournament. How do you slow down? How do you slow down this Nebraska team? Obviously, like you said, is it just stopping the three, or is there anything else you can do, should the three keep falling for the Huskers?
I mean, I think over 50% of their shots are from three. So like that's kind of the main thing, right? If you're able to either run them off the line, which I think is much easier said than done, obviously, or just really stop the dribble penetration, which allows them to get inside to get threes. They run a lot of pretty complicated off-ball action. So it's really much easier said than done. It depends on like the scheme Troy has, but I think Moss is kind of the guy that really makes it all go. Like he's just, I mean, he's the. I don't remember what Missouri Valley school he played for before. Was it Bradley? Was he at Bradley before?
I will get that for you in a second.
Yeah.
It was Bradley.
Yeah, okay, he was at Bradley before, and then he comes to Nebraska. He was out last season with an injury. He's back this year. He was a guy I've underrated all year, and maybe I'm just doing it again, but I think he's the guy that kind of makes it go because he's a big man that's just super skilled. He's a great passer, and they know how to really play off him well. But I really think it comes down to just three-point shooting. It's simple, but that's how I think it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Another interesting team. Again, I don't know why I keep hovering to these 14 seeds just because it's interesting matchups. But Penn, the Quakers, Riley, obviously Penn, the Ivy League champs, in a very exciting Ivy League championship game. If you missed that on Sunday in between, some of the other 5 games that were going on that day, I do kind of feel bad for you because it was a really fun watch. What did they do against Yale to get the win, and what can they take into Illinois to make this an exciting game?
Well, they hit some timely shots and forced overtime to beat Yale is really what they did. But I'll tell you what, I mean, when it comes down to it, like Penn just can out tough and I mean behind TJ Power can outscore anyone in the Ivy League. I mean, as they kind of proved in the Ivy League championship here, getting it done in 2 tightly contested games, both in overtime, if I'm not mistaken, the first one against Harvard too. Unfortunately, it sounds like Penn is going to be missing Ethan Roberts for the tournament. I know he's been dealing with some concussion symptoms and was out for the Ivy League tournament. I haven't heard or don't have any reason to believe he'll necessarily be back for the NCAA tournament, which is tough because I think points-wise, he is their leading scorer. But, I wouldn't necessarily say he's the heartbeat of this team, as I alluded to a moment ago. It's definitely TJ Power, and he's what carried them through, in the Ivy League championship here. I mean, a guy who shoots it effectively, eats up a ton of the minute share at Penn, obviously coming from 2 Ivy League programs. He's got a ton of high major pedigree, didn't play a ton at those schools necessarily, but a little bit of that experience never helps never hurts, on a big stage here like this. But yeah, I mean, it'll come down to sort of the way TJ Power plays. It's always going to be an uphill battle against a team like Illinois. They've just got a ton of tough physical European dudes and can score the heck out of the ball. I don't know if TJ Power is going to be able to score 40, 50 like he did in the Ivy League tournament to necessarily play. So we'll have to see how it works out there. And it does seem like, actually, Michael sending a tweet here in the chat, it does seem like they're trying to get Roberts to practice for the NCAA tournament, which, would be a pretty big deal because when he's on the court, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but, I can assure you they are a much better team because he's a guy who's averaging almost 17 points per game. I've seen in person just how tough of a player Ethan Roberts is in particular. He's fought through different injuries this year to be with this team to help, lead them to the Ivy League tournament for the first time in a couple of years. The Ivy League tournament being only a 4-bid tournament, in an 8-bid in an 8-team conference. It'll be an uphill battle, but if TJ Power is going to keep scoring like he's been scoring the past couple of weeks, if they get back in Ethan Roberts in some form, I'd keep an eye on a guy like Michael Zanoni and AJ Levine, who's the heartbeat of this backcourt, and their primary playmaker, averaging more than 4 assists per game this year. So a really talented Penn team when they're healthy, playing at their best. As I said, it's always an uphill battle against a team like Illinois. But just exciting overall for them to be back in the NCAA tournament under first-year head coach Frain McCaffrey. A program that maybe seemed like, for those around the Big Five, seemed like it had sort of been wilting the past couple of years. And he's a former alum. McCaffrey's kind of come back and breathed some life into it, obviously taking them back to the NCAA tournament for the first time, I think since, if I'm not mistaken, since 2018. So really exciting year for the Penn community. Of course, we were watching it on press row at the A-10 tournament, that game against Yale. How could you not be in overtime, taking down the number 1 seed? And I think it'll really come down to how TJ Power performs here. It's always just tough. 14 versus 3 is always tough. But a Penn team I like their physicality. I like their scoring. I like their defense too. They're one of the more efficient. I think they're the most efficient defense in the Ivy League and holding teams in conference to a league low. So, if they can hold Illinois' offense to low scoring and keep them off the boards, which TJ Power always does well. He's got a ton of size and physicality, and they score it well at times too. They've been over 100, or excuse me, they've been over 80 points multiple times in conference play. Have been up to 90, 95. And obviously dropped 88 on Yale, a really good Yale team in OT the other day. So
Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about Illinois, but really exciting year for Penn.
Yeah, absolutely. And just wrapping up on Penn real quick, that report about Ethan Roberts coming from Connor Smith of the Philly Inquirer. And then on a quick thing on TJ Power. Oh, and also you were right, and that this is the first Penn bid since 2018. And then just one quick thought on TJ Power. I think it was on his Instagram story, right? Probably one of the best pictures from championship weekend, him bringing the Ivy League tournament trophy to that statue of Ben Franklin in Philly. That was awesome. I got a real kick out of that. DeRosa, tough Illinois team that the Penn Quakers are going up against. What can we expect out of Illinois?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think this is a terrible matchup for Penn. Illinois just has so much size at really every position, right? Like Keaton Wagler. Like I don't know how Penn has a guy to stop him. McCaffrey versus Underwood again, I think is a very interesting matchup. I just think that's kind of fun. But yeah, I just think, Illinois has so much size that I feel like they just kind of are able to dominate Penn on the interior. And then if you're really over rotating on those guys, they also have shooters at literally every position. All the international bigs they have can all step out and hit threes. And they're all pretty physical. They're all pretty tough. And then if Wagler's in the pick and roll, it's generally pretty money. Penn hasn't been a great defensive team all year. They really can put up points in bunches, but I don't think they're a great defensive team. I think this game could be very high scoring. I think could end like 105 to like 82 or something like that. I think could get really up and down, but I don't know how Penn's really going to be able to string stops together. I think Illinois really dominates them at any way they want to offensively. I don't see how this matchup goes any other way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just, your thoughts on a potential favorite to come out of this conference. Is it the reigning champs? Is it Houston? Or is it this Illini team that we've just been talking about? Or something else?
Yeah, I think it's very likely we get another Florida-Vandy matchup. The last matchup in the SEC tournament, Vandy just smoked them. Like, that game wasn't all that competitive. I think it's going to be interesting to see if we get adjustments there. Like, I'm pretty confident that matchup happens. In the end, I will be picking Florida. And I haven't been very high on this Houston team all season. I do think they got a good draw with the 7-10s. St. Mary's just hasn't beaten a team better than them in the NCAA tournament in a while. And Texas A&M is just so hot and cold. Like, I don't know what Texas A&M we're getting. So I do think we end up getting Illinois versus Florida. I'm not certain on how that game goes. I want to think about it a little more, but gut says Florida's been playing very well lately. I think their guards will do enough, and I think Florida's front court is just better than Illinois', but I don't know. I'm not super confident on this region yet. I'm confident we get Florida versus Vandy, and then I think we get Illinois versus Houston. And just how it goes from there, couldn't tell you. It's very chalky, I know, but it's chalk region to me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the West. This is one of the teams in here I'm very, very excited to break down with you, Riley. But first, let's just go through the top seeds real quick. Arizona at the 1, Purdue at the 2, Gonzaga at the 3, Arkansas, the SEC champs, at the 4. Interesting matchups here. The 5-12 is Wisconsin versus High Point. 6-11, that will be BYU versus the winner of the first 4 game between Texas and NC State. And then Miami, Florida versus Mizzou. Mizzou, kind of a team that crept their way in as the season progressed. Could be poised for an interesting run. But first, DeRosa, I wanted to talk about Villanova, the third of the 3 Big East teams in this year's tournament, going up against reigning Mountain West champs Utah State. How are we feeling about these Wildcats versus Utah State?
Villanova really stumbled down the stretch. They had it going like very late in the season, but I believe one of those wins was Xavier without Trey Carroll, which, Xavier wasn't good without their best player and a guy who made the first team All Big East. They're even worse, obviously. Then in the Big East tournament, they go 1 and done. They lose to Georgetown, a team that really hadn't had a ton of sustained success this year. Had a pretty decent run in the Big East tournament and played some of their best ball lately, but even so, that wasn't a very good team. And now you're playing a Utah State team that runs really good offense. Mason Falslev, I think, is going to be the best guy in the court. Yeah, I just think schematically, I think this is a pretty big Utah State edge. Villanova, Georgetown really beat them on the glass. Like that was the one area like Georgetown definitively won that game. Everything else was fairly even, which playing even with Georgetown is not great. The glass is where Georgetown just killed them. Like it was not competitive on the offensive glass. And inside, Julius Halafanua went crazy. I don't think Utah State has a presence like that. They have Isaac Big Fish Johnson. He's huge. But like, I don't think he's the most skilled guy, but I think these guards, MJ Collins, Mason Falslav, just whoever Utah State wants to run out there, I think they have enough to beat Villanova. I think this is a tough draw. You're playing a team that's playing some of their best ball lately. I mean, they beat San Diego State in the Mountain West tournament. They kind of ran through the Mountain West all season against a Villanova team that's really slumping lately. I just think Villanova kind of maxed out on their talent, but if Villanova wants to win this game, it's pretty simple. It's a Caden Lewis. That kid is special. He's a maestro in the pick and roll. He's just going to have to completely take over this game. I think it's going to be tough, but if there's any kid that can do it, it's him. He's special.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about that one seed, Arizona. They won their first 23 games of the year, dropped 2 in a row to Kansas and then to Texas Tech in overtime. And then from then on, they won everything, right? They finished. They won out in the regular season. They won all 3 games in the Big 12 tournament, including 1 game on those slippery glass LED floors. I believe 1 game, right? DeRosa? They played at least 1 game, right? Because it was the semifinals that they cut the glass floors.
I don't remember when. Well, who did they play in that game? Was it
UCF? They played UCF in the first.
It was the UCF game, yeah, and then by the Iowa State because that's when Anderson got hurt in the Iowa State game, right? When Texas Tech played Iowa State, I think that's when it was stopped. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, well, they played some games on those gross glass floors, but then obviously they beat Houston on the classic hardwood 79-74 to clinch the Big 12 title. This is a team that's floated around our House of College Hoops #1 spot for pretty much the entire season. It's pretty much just been them and Duke and Michigan, in sparse pockets. But what can we expect out of this Wildcats team?
I mean, it's Arizona, right? They're going to bully teams to the rim. Like, that's what they've done all season. They out-Houstoned Houston multiple times when they played Houston. Like, I think that's a statement in itself. And Jaden Bradley, to steal a line from Sam Fetterman, has been the best closer in college basketball all season. He just has been. Like, if a game gets down, if it gets ugly, they're going to Jaden Bradley. Anthony DeRosa has emerged lately. Campbell transfer, I believe this is his second year at Arizona. He's a guy who's emerged lately. He's finally giving them a real perimeter threat, which I think makes them another way that they're really a tough cover. I think they're obviously a very good basketball team. They're the second highest seed in the tournament. Like they're going to bully teams inside. You got Koa Pete back, Tobe Awaka, and my God, I cannot think of the international big's name. They're on Arizona, but it'll come to me in a second. But they're dominating teams on the glass. They've been terrific, really at all levels. Bradley's one of the best closers in the game. DeRosa's hitting perimeter shots. Like, this team is awesome. Defensively, they really get after you. And Braden Berry he's a freshman that hasn't been talked about just because the freshmen have been so good. Even in this region, hell, you have Debansa, you have Acuff, and you have Berries. That Berries is going to be overshadowed, but he is special, man. He's different. Really a ton of talent on this Arizona team. And yeah, if they're able to hit perimeter shots, they're going to be a tough out.
Is it Krivas that you're talking about, the international?
Yes, Krivas, thank you.
Yeah, Krivas. Speaking of Anthony DeLoreso, quick shout out to our boy Trevor Everett, who was covering Anthony DeLoreso when he was at Campbell. Real diamond in the rough player that he was covering for the House of College Hoops before making the jump to the Big 12. Obviously, Arizona, #1 seed, going up against 16 seed LIU. Before we get into LIU, can we just get a quick fins up? Riley, that was an impeccable fins up. And I feel like the reason why is because I don't know if I know anybody more familiar with this LIU team than you. Obviously, they've been getting a lot of exposure in these last couple of weeks because they, went on to win the NEC tournament, clinch the automatic bid, and they've been a great team. They drew big crowds in that last NEC championship game. But I gotta say, you were talking to me about this team, on Fordham Media Row back in like November and December. So I wanted to give you your flowers real quick, and kind of just emphasize why it's important. Like guys like you and guys like DeRosa, like all of you guys that are working on all this, this hyper local coverage, why this is important, because if you want to learn about a story like Fins Up before it breaks the kind of the national barrier, make sure you follow guys like Riley. So getting into it, what did you see, both for this emerging LIU fan base and on this team that kind of sets them up to be a really fun mid-major to watch, at least just for maybe one game in this tournament?
Sure. Well, first, I appreciate all the kind words there, Sam. That was quite sort of the introduction to my LIU coverage. No, it's been cool, because I remember being in the gym when they had 3 wins, the first season when Rod Strickland was there. And so watching sort of the team grow and sort of the fan base grow along with it has been fun. I think we should give a quick shout out to Cameron Kaufman and David Pochapin, who were kind of the ones who sort of spearheaded the growth of that fan section, the Reef, and sort of started the Fins Up. And if you've seen any of the coverage online, it's pretty much, all spearheaded by interviews with the 2 of those guys. And they've been really awesome getting to know both of them and all the work they've put in over there at LIU. I mean, for goodness sakes, Cameron Kaufman literally donated a replica shark statue to the university that they've now put just outside the gym. If you go look at my Twitter profile picture, it's the shark in the Twitter profile picture. So it's been incredible this year, really watching it all grow and take off from, again, just a couple of years ago when they had 3 wins. And
stuck in an elevator, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that was 2 years ago. They got stuck in an elevator, and they also
in traffic too.
I was going to say Sam Fetterman. Another shout out to Sam Fetterman, was covering a game that LIU was late to because they got stuck in traffic. So, the program has certainly come a long way. I don't think they got stuck in any traffic or any elevators or anything like that this season. It seems like a lot more winning for them finally. But one of the marquee seasons in program history, really, since they've sort of changed their moniker to the Sharks. Going on to win 24 games and 15 in conference, NEC regular season champs, tournament champs. You mentioned, back in November, Sam, when we were kind of talking about these guys on press row. And I think the nature of that is, they just have so much more. They have more athletes, more all around talent than really anyone in the NEC. And so, I think when they're the only team in conference that, which is a rarity in this transfer portal era, the only team in conference that returned 2 all-conference selections from a season ago. And then on top of that, they went out in the transfer portal and they added a guy like Greg Gordon, who, if you recall, 2 years ago was averaging 16, 17 points per game at Iona. He goes on this year to win NEC Defensive Player of the Year with LIU, and sort of, the 3 of those guys, it's sort of their three-headed snake, three-headed monster, whatever you want to call it. And really, they rode those 3 along with some playmakings from Jomo Goings and a little bit of size in the front court from guys like Shadrick Lassu. They rode those guys, to one of their best, their most memorable seasons in conference play in recent history, and had some big wins too. They managed to get James Madison to come down to the Steenberg Wellness Center over in Brooklyn, and they beat them pretty handedly, a team that was not in the NCAA tournament not too long ago. I'm sure everyone remembers their season opening win against IU Indy, which was mid-major madness, called one of the best mid-major games of the year, all the way back in November. So it's an exciting team, and the 1-16 seed is a tough draw. But what I like about this LIU team, is they have 2 guys who are, probably the best athletes you can find at the low major level in a Malachi Davis and Greg Gordon. Gordon sort of, I mentioned it, the NEC Defensive Player of the Year, but he's an absolute pest on the defensive end, a guy I would just hate to play against because he will get under your skin any way he can. He will poke and prod. I could imagine he's going to be really annoying against Braden Burries. I know it's a big challenge for them, but he's a guy who just plays with a chip on his shoulder and really is like fearless on the defensive end. The way he guards. And then flipping back to Malachi Davis, he's the engine of this offense. Not the most efficient 3-point shooter, in the country, not the most efficient scorer in the country, but this guy gets downhill with ease. He carves up everyone in the NEC. And he can shoot pretty well. He's not, he really is the motor to this offense. He's a little bit of a playmaker too, a top 350 in the country in assist rate by KenPom's metrics, I'm pretty sure. And then the last guy who I mentioned being sort of part of that 3-headed monster, Jamal Fuller. He is the most interesting player in this offense because he's 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", somewhere around there, but he's close to 220, 230 pounds. And sort of he's a mismatch nightmare for anyone at this level because he scores with such efficiency. I mean, he can attack the rim with ease, again, sort of using his mismatch, his size, his physicality to get to the rim against smaller defenders. But he's also, not huge. And so he can step back with some athleticism and hit threes when this team needs to. And a guy who finished almost top 100 in effective field goal percentage, but he was 69th in the country in true shooting percentage. So again, 16 versus 1, it's always tough, but there's been a lot of magic behind this LIU team throughout the season. The way this fan base has sort of formed around the team. I was in there when they won over in the semifinals to actually clinch the automatic bid before going to the NEC championship. And it was incredible in there. I hope, some of those fans get the chance to travel out to Illinois and watch this team because really the way they've rallied around them has been incredible. So we haven't seen a 1/16 upset, I think, since 2023. And again, there's just been so much magic around this LIU team. Maybe this is the year. I really hope so. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And, it'd be crucial for that Fins Up crew to make it over to that game. The next team I want to talk about here, Arkansas. Reigning SEC champs, Calipari finally got it done with the Razorbacks. DeRosa, what do you like about this Arkansas team?
Darius Acuff is so good. Oh my God, he's terrific. It's weird. Like I look at a guy like that, and I think you can make an argument he's a first-team All-American. I don't think he's talked about enough, which is kind of crazy for a kid like that good. Just special. He was masterful in the championship game, the SEC championship game. I think he had 31 and 11, and it felt like casual. Like he gets in the lane at will. His three-point jump shot is butter. He's quick. He's got size. He knows how to use his body really well. He is just terrific. And Arkansas, like Calipari knows how to play through a great guard. He's had Derrick Rose. He's had John Wall. Like he knows how to play through a guard like that. And I don't think Darius Acuff is as good as those guys, but like, he's up there, man. He's up. Like, he'll be in that conversation someday. Like, you'll look back, it'll be like, all right, we had Wall, he had Rose, and he had Acuff. Like, those will be like the three. I really think he's that good. And Hawaii, I haven't watched a ton of them, but from what I've read, what I've gathered, and a little bit I've watched, they play a style where they kind of they don't help. Like they play their defense is really dependent on we're going over screens. Like we're just going to do everything we can to fight and not have to force help. Right? We're just going to leave our guys on an island and we trust them. It's a really intricate scheme. Like there's obviously more to it. I'm just kind of boiling it down to what I understand and boiling that even further. I think that's a very tough matchup against a guy like Darius Acuff, just because he's so good in isolation that he's just going to make you pay. He's got a really nice little floater game. He gets to the rim at will. He's finisher through contact, and he's a guy who can step back and hit a jumper at any given time. Darius Acuff is really the guy I love with this Arkansas team. Then they spaced the floor pretty well. Trevor Brazil was stepping out hitting threes in the SEC tournament, hitting big shots all season. Billy Richmond's been a guy who's only been getting better. Really, really long frame, and they've got guards just next to Acuff. DJ Wagner comes off the bench. Malik Thomas has been a legitimate scorer just whenever they need him. But it's Acuff is the engine that makes this team go, and then it's everything else, right? And if we get an Arkansas-Wisconsin matchup, Nick Boyd was cooking in the Big Ten tournament. Acuff versus Boyd would be fun.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you, some other key matchups. Just a true basketball lovers matchup in this region. What would that look like for you? Would it be Arkansas BYU? Would it be Arizona versus Purdue? Maybe Wisconsin Gonzaga? I don't know. What do you feel like is the true just pure basketball? Yeah, LIU versus Queens. Pure basketball matchup for you, DeRosa.
It would be Wisconsin Arkansas. That's the game I'd be most looking forward to. And
in the second round.
Second round. That is the game I really most want to see, just because I think it creates the most interesting style matchup. And just you have two guards. Guards win games in March. Guards are special in this tournament. But we've also, I'll mention this team, even though they're definitely not the basketball purist team, just because they don't shoot the ball very well. They don't run a ton of great offense or anything. But Sam, we've talked about it for a while. Miami's a team I'm going to pick to go too far. I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. I think they get by Missouri because, as I've said on our bracket show we've done many times, Missouri's a Ponzi scheme. They're a Ponzi scheme. Purdue is a team that's very hot and cold, but Miami has a ball-stopping guard. True Washington, I think, is maybe the best perimeter defender of guards like you will find in most games. Trey Donaldson's another very good ball stopper. And inside, I think Malik Renew's just going to see barbecue chicken against either TKR or Oscar Clough. I think it's a very good matchup for Miami, so I might have him going there. And then I think they play Gonzaga, and I might pick Miami to beat Gonzaga as well. I like this Miami team a lot. I really like what Jay Lucas has done. I think he's a very good defensive mind. They'll throw multiple defenses at you, and I think they'll find ways to answer for EK. And Gonzaga, one thing they've struggled with is some ball pressure. Mario Sansupri, I think, is a very good player, but he's a freshman, right? And he's going to go against veterans. And I think Miami could win that matchup as well. Like, if there is a team seeded like 4 or below that I'm going to pick to go to the Elite Eight, I think it's Miami. And that's terrifying because they are not a good shooting team.
It's one of those sentences, right, where you scare yourself the moment that it comes out of your mouth.
Yeah, I'm scaring myself, but mama ain't raised no bitch, Sam. I'm going to do it.
Right. I love it. All right, Miami to the Elite Eight, and then the real matchup to watch for any ball fanatic is Arkansas versus Wisconsin. So let's get into the final region that we're going to be talking about, the 2026 Midwest region. The number 1 seed here, obviously the Big Ten runners-up, Michigan. Number 2, Iowa State. 3, Virginia. Alabama, the 4 seed. We're going to talk about them in a little bit because that's some interesting news out of Tuscaloosa. Texas Tech versus Akron is the 5-12 game. 6-11 is Tennessee versus the winner of Miami, Ohio versus SMU. Let's actually start there because we were talking about in the beginning of the show. We weren't too mad about a lot of the selections that the committee made because the real big question was, will Miami of Ohio get in at 31-1 with a loss to UMass in the quarterfinals of the single A MAC tournament? They did. It's the first 4. It's still the tournament. DeRosa, let's start off with you. Do you feel like that's a fair placement for these Redhawks?
Yeah, just based on the way the committee goes, it makes sense. Would I have liked to have seen them get a 10 just because I think it would have been more fun? Yeah, I think I would have. Just because I want to reward a team that won 31 games, that only lost 1 game, right? You want to reward a team that finished the regular season undefeated, but I mean, they got
you want to guarantee that Thursday slate.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
That said, and I don't think I've heard really many people give this take. I actually think they beat SMU. I don't think SMU plays any perimeter defense. I think it comes down to the 3-point shooting contest, and I think Miami's a better 3-point shooting team. I think they opened 8.5-point underdogs. Now, I think it even got to 9.5 at one point. That was pushed down very quickly. I played Miami around that range. I think Miami wins this game. I think they're just a better shooting team, and I think this comes down to shooting because SMU, again, I'm going to reiterate it, they play 0 perimeter defense. 0. Miami can hit shots. It's a good team. I don't think whoever wins that game beats Tennessee, but I do think Miami's going to win that game, and I really do.
Yeah. Miami's MAC compatriot that ended up winning the tournament for the 3rd year in a row, the Akron Zips. They take on Texas Tech in the 5-12 game. Riley, what could fans expect out of this Akron team? And is this the 12th seed to pick this year?
Yeah, I mean, they can expect one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now in the midst of a 10-game win streak, I think, which is fifth longest in the nation, according to Ken Palm. A really offensively potent team, but they have a ton of defensive balance too. I mean, 12th in the country in 2-point percentage in terms of their offensive rate and 14th in 3-point percentage. So again, a ton of balance there. They can rely a little bit heavy in the mid range, but in the MAC, I think the big thing is it's always physical. It's always a little bit defensive latent. So this is a tough Akron team. I mean, they have guards who are scrappy, like Tavari Johnson. I think of Shema Scott, who went and hit the game winner in the conference tournament to I believe to send them to March Madness. If I'm not mistaken, my days are all getting a little scrambled being at the A10 tournament the past week. And then they have some size in the front court too. I mean, Amani Lyles is physical, he's efficient, and he gets on the boards incredibly well. I mean, top 50 in the country for defensive rebounding percentage. Top 55 in the country for defensive rebounding percentage. Top 250 in the country for offensive rebounding percentage, and he's top 65 in the country for both true shooting percentage and effective field goal percentage. So this is an efficient scoring team, an efficient offense. Again, in the midst of a 10-game win streak. They blew a couple teams away in the they blew away Kent State in the conference tournament, ran away with that game late. They closed out the season playing some of their best ball. They scored more than 90 points, I think 5 or 6 times during the month of February. So this is a really potent offense, playing some of its best playing some of its best basketball this season so far and under John Gross. I think they potentially have some more left here on the table. A Texas Tech team that I think has struggled a little bit this season, if I'm not mistaken, at different points. Of course, I believe they fell to Iowa State really early in the conference tournament, bowed out extremely early, and if I'm not mistaken, also closed out the regular season on 2 losses. So, an Akron team that's maybe playing some really good ball coming up against the Texas Tech team that's struggling a little bit. Definitely a matchup I'm going to keep an eye on and one I'll definitely do some more looking into. But yeah, I think I'd give Akron a shot here against, again, a Texas Tech team that's struggling, but just because of their offense. I mean, I think they can score with the best of them. They've been doing it all throughout the last month of February and heading into March.
Yeah, absolutely. And another mid-major team I would love to talk about, again, on one that you and I have both seen up close, the St. Louis Billikens. They are the 9th seed. They're taking on Georgia in the first round of this tournament. They are the A10 regular season champs. They were the 1 bid in this year's A10 tournament, but they were in a Mel Latong from Dayton buzzer beater away from making the championship game. Some have said that, and I've watched the tape, and I was watching the game live, but then I went back and I watched, some of the last plays. It did kind of look like, after Latong hit that buzzer beater, there was a player that ran onto the court in celebration, didn't realize that maybe it was a full time. There wasn't a full timeout called. SLU was trying to get the ball down. Before we get into what this Billikens team can do, could you talk about maybe if you had a good angle of what went down on Press Row?
Yeah, so it seemed like, and the way it was sort of explained by Shirts and Press too was, first of all, that 13 seconds was probably the best 13 seconds of college basketball I've covered in the past couple of years. I mean, you have Jacob Connor, who had been little used this game and underused this season. A Dayton native sort of steps out in the corner, hits a big 3 to give Dayton the lead. Robbie Avila and St. Louis get down on the fast break down the other end. Robbie Avila 0 from 6 for 3 to that point. But sort of that trailing 3 has become, an important part of his game. It felt like he might have been, he hadn't hit a 3 all night, but everyone in the building, knew he was going to hit that trailing 3. And he finishes 1 for 7 from 3 again to hand St. Louis the lead. And then they go back down the other end and Jordan Durkak, who had been getting to the line with ease all day, tries to do the same thing again. And shot didn't go. And you said it, Sam. I mean, the Amala Tang tip in, not quite before the buzzer. And that's sort of where the controversy takes off. It seemed like, Dayton thought it was before the buzzer. And so you had Deshane Montgomery run onto the court from the bench as well as an assistant coach. And what Shirt's response to that was sort of there was, time left on the clock. They were trying to get the ball in bounce and the refs blew the play dead when it should have been, called a technical. And St. Louis, subsequently handed some free throws down the other end with a chance to, down 1, pull themselves in front. So sort of a tough finish. I think I tend to agree with St. Louis. It probably should have been called, probably called for a technical at the time, but I guess it's all sort of semantics at this point. The refs sort of decided to let it play out. Maybe thinking, I'm not sure. We didn't get an explanation from the officiating department or anything like that, so I'm not sure. If they just decided it was best to let it play out, sort of, in the wake of the way things were going, or if maybe they thought they'd heard a timeout and that's why they blew it dead or something of that nature. I don't recall specifically if either team had a timeout left. But yeah, definitely a crazy sequence the way it played out. I definitely feel a little tough for Dayton, but I'm sure they won't stew in it too long with, an opportunity, a good opportunity, a good matchup here against a Georgia team, that I think is pretty beatable for St. Louis.
Yeah, absolutely. This Georgia team started off really hot, but then kind of, they kind of coasted a little bit down the stretch. They started out 13-1. They enter the tournament 22-10. They lost their opening SEC tournament game to Mississippi, 76-72. DeRosa, how are you feeling about this Georgia team?
They're so hot and cold. They play super, super fast, right? I think they've almost it's weird to say they've slowed down a little bit in the SEC, because they're the 16th fastest paced team in the country. But I believe before SEC play began, I think they were the fastest paced team in the country. So they slowed down a little bit, but even so, like their regular season finale against Mississippi State was a 79 possession game. Like they really get up and down the floor. They're built from their guards. Jeremiah Wilkinson has been a stud for them. I believe he's a Cal transfer. 35% from three. He gets to the line very well. He doesn't turn the ball over, which playing at this pace is kind of crazy. And he forces a ton of deflections, ton of steals and blocks. Blue Kane, very similar player. He's kind of like a guard wing, but good true shooting percentage. He shoots 60% from inside the arc, 90% from the free throw line. Just a really crafty player. Knows how to get to his spots really well. Again, another guy who's really good with deflections. Those two guys both get their hands on a lot, and Georgia's able to force turnovers and really play at this sort of speed because those two guys can force turnovers. And Jordan Ross off the bench from SMU, not SMU, St. Mary's. Another really talented player, really good at getting in the lane and scoring. This team really looks to get downhill and then kick and then hit a ton of threes from that variation. Santos Cyril, I think, is going to be the key in this game specifically, just because what they've done defensively pretty much and like how they're able to use him is they just station him right at the rim. And it's just he's altering and denying shots at the rim just because he's so athletic. He's big and he's just a leader. Like he's just one of the best shot blockers in the country. He's 10th in block percentage. I'd imagine because he's on the floor a lot, he's pretty high in like blocks per game, but against a guy like Robbie Avila, as Riley mentioned, that trail three is always open. Like you have to guard that guy from the perimeter. If you don't, it's wet like water. So I think it's a very interesting matchup for Georgia. Because I don't think St. Louis is a team that's really going to try to like really slow it down. Like they're going to be okay playing in a sort of up tempo game because they'll still run through their stuff. But like the first good look they're getting, they're taking. But if Santos Cyril isn't able to really station himself in the paint, that's going to open up a lot for St. Louis. And if he is, that Robbie Avila three is wide open.
Yeah. Specifically that Robbie Avila three, I feel like I've never seen a guy settle into his spot in college more than I've seen Robbie Avila settle into that right wing, right? Like that, Riley, I don't know if you can agree with me, but that one three that he hit at the end that he was struggling with, he was 0 for 6. And then it was in that exact spot, the right from the right wing, right in front of his own bench, which the day before, I mean, he was just hammering against GW. So yeah, that's definitely the kind of the hot spot to guard for Robbie Avila. Yeah. Another mid-major matchup, specifically a mid-major matchup against another SEC team that I wanted to talk about with you, Riley, is 13 seed Hofstra going up against 4 seed Alabama. Obviously, I brought you on to be kind of our mid-major expert here, but I specifically really wanted to talk about LIU and Hofstra, considering, we're both two Long Island guys, and it's just really exciting. Obviously, I know neither of us went to these schools, but it's always exciting to see kind of some local programs in the mix here, and you don't really get 2 Long Island programs in the tournament in 1 year. 3, if maybe if you count St. John's, but I know there are some people, people in NYC in New York City don't really love to call Queens and Brooklyn Long Island, but we'll leave the semantics to another time. But this Hofstra team, 24-10 under head coach Speedy Claxton, they are the CAA champs. What can you tell us about this team? What do they like to do, and how could they, give Alabama some trouble?
Yeah, I mean, just a really great story. Well, not only because, sort of a unique connection between the two programs, and Aaron Estrada, who was recently, on Alabama when they made their run a couple of years ago, and he came from Hofstra prior to that. So I'm sure he'll have some rooting stake in this game, and will maybe even be in attendance. But yeah, I think it's a really good story overall because last time Hofstra had a chance to make the NCAA tournament, their bid was sort of taken away during the COVID era. And when Speedy Claxton, their current head coach, was an assistant, and now he's getting the opportunity to lead his team, and he's won 20 games 3 times, now 4 times, including this season. During his 5 years there, so doing a really solid job, and sort of finally taking his alma mater back to the NCAA tournament. And he's doing it with a really exciting group. That's they're offensive, they can score it as well as anybody in the conference, albeit very streakily sometimes. And maybe that'll come into play in the NCAA tournament. But they're a really strong defensive unit too. One of the best in the CAA this year. I think they held opponents to the second lowest scoring total in the CAA. I don't have the stats up in front of me right this moment. But I know they're top 100 in the country in both offensive and defensive efficiency. So a really strong two-way unit, and it sort of starts in the backcourt, which if you followed Hofstra the last couple of years, it should be no surprise. But also, if you know Speedy Claxton, should be no surprise. A former NBA guard himself. They always bring in talented guards via the portal, and even sometimes with freshmen, and are able to sort of coach them up and turn them around, and before they either help Hofstra to win 20 games or transfer off elsewhere. And, they've had a lot of success with that model. And this year, the guy's been Cruz Davis. He was there last year and sort of struggled, having to be a little bit more of an off-ball dominant scorer, still sort of the mechanic of their offense in terms of he runs the playmaking. But, a guy who's averaging 20 points per game, CAA player of the year. They go as he goes. If Cruz Davis is scoring, he's going to finish with 20 points per game, and Hofstra's it's going to be a really close game if Hofstra's not going to run away with it. But secondary behind him, they have a ton of, I don't want to even call them role players because they've all sort of had their own big moments this year. But guys like freshman CAA freshman of the year, rookie of the year, Preston Amida, again, a Long Island native, which makes this, another exciting part of this story. But the way he stepped up in big moments and has hit some clutch shots for them and was incredible during the CAA tournament. He goes on to win CAA tournament most valuable player, obviously, as a freshman, which a rarity, but a guy who can score the heck out of it. He's averaging 16 points per game. He's been in the starting lineup, this entire season, started 34 out of 34 games, and can make the heck out of it too. So again, this Hofstra team, it starts in the backcourt. Guys like Cruz Davis, Preston Amid, German Plotnikov, who's more of a wing, but has been there almost 4 years now, starting out in the JUCO ranks, which again is sort of a rarity in today's college basketball game. Seeing a guy who's been there for 4 years, but they have some physicality in the front court too. Guys like Silas Sunday, Victory Onyewetu is one of the best rebounders in the conference. Even Josh Decady, who's a little bit more of a guard-wing combo, is just a stout defensive player and has really taken a leap as a sophomore here and can provide some solid scoring off the bench. So really strong all-around team, really good two-way unit, sort of predicated on the backcourt success. But again, they can be a little streaky. I look back to conference play where they lost 5 in a row at one point and then went on to win. I think they lost only one in their last 10 games heading into the conference tournament before winning 3 straight to win the conference championship. So obviously, that makes them one of the hotter teams in college basketball. But again, they kind of go how Cruz Davis goes, and it'll be sort of how he goes in against this matchup against an Alabama team that's I'm sure we'll dive into in a moment here, a little bit depleted of late.
Yeah, absolutely. This Alabama team, a very strong Alabama team as the 4 seed, but like you said, as we're about to get into, they're going to be without their second leading scorer, Aiden Holloway. For those of you who don't know. Tuscaloosa police reporting. This is the Myron Metcalf report from ESPN. Aiden Holloway was arrested Monday morning on drug charges. According to the report, the Tuscaloosa County Police have recovered more than a pound of marijuana, paraphernalia, and cash from the Alabama guard. And his current status as of right now, as of us recording this live stream, I have not seen an update on whether or not he will be available to play. So, DeRosa, for you, without Holloway, where can Alabama rely on, just getting some points on the board against Hofstra?
Yeah, so the school came out and said something like he's away from the school right now. He's off campus. As they further investigate, it's Alabama, so no updates on that yet. We'll see, considering I don't know how much time Brandon Miller missed when he had his situation. So
he played in the tournament.
He did play in the tournament that year. He played pretty quickly after. And then 2 games later, of course, he was doing a gun celebration. It's yeah, of course he was. But yeah, with this Alabama team, it's all on LeBaron Philon at this point. And with good reason. He is a stud and a half. He's going to take a much larger offensive role. Julio Bethea has not played a lot lately. I think he's been active, but yeah, in the last 4 games, he played 1 minute against Tennessee, 4 against Georgia, 9 against Auburn, and then 2 in the SEC tournament against Ole Miss. He's not a guy that's gotten out there a lot. It's been a lot of Philon. It's been a lot of Reitzel and a little bit of Millette now too. Those 3 are going to, those are the guys who are really going to get the shots up. guard. Alabama plays really a lot through their guards, really fast paced, high rim 3 rate. It's just been their thing. Hollywood is the best perimeter shooter, so that you definitely lose a little bit of perimeter shooting. Right, so Mallet, you're going to need to hit some shots, and Philon's a 40% 3-point shooter. Philon does literally everything well. Like, that's a guy you're going to get anything from. But I imagine we're going to see a little more Jalil Bethea, and you just got to hope he's hitting outside shots. He's a guy who has taken 48 threes to 27 twos this year. The majority of his shots are coming from 3-point range. They need really a lot from – I mean, it's really going to be a lot in combination with Philon, with Reitzel, with Mallet. And the front court doesn't score a ton for them. It's Mari Allen's a really Swiss Army knife defender. He can hit some outside shots. Like, he's hit 46 threes this year, so he's making about 1.5 threes a game. But really, it's the guards that really generate a lot of their offense for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking elsewhere in this region, a fun matchup I kind of like, Kentucky versus Santa Clara, the 7-10 game. A 3-bit WCC, especially with Gonzaga on the way out, just like really makes me happy. So I was just curious if any of you guys had any thoughts on this Santa Clara team and how they can match up against the Wildcats.
I like Santa Clara a lot. Alan Graves is a guy who's going to be a pro at some point soon. I mean, he's got size, he's got athleticism. They have to play him a lot. Santa Clara does at the 5, just because they don't have like a ton of like real size. They have that 7-foot big man who's young. I believe he's a sophomore. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But
Bucky Oboye.
Yes, Oboye. Yes, him. He's a solid player. He's not a guy you're gonna like completely take advantage of, but like when he's not on the floor, it's a lot of Graves at the 5, which I think creates some interesting lineups. And I don't think Kentucky like really takes advantage of teams in the post, so I don't think Graves at the 5 is gonna kill him. And then on the perimeter, it's the guards for SMU that really play well. Like Sasha Kavalyagov was really, really good in the WCC tournament. I imagine Riley can give more of a perspective on Santa Clara, but I've been impressed by this team when I've watched them. Hammond is another guard too. He's a guy that plays with a chip on his shoulder. I like this team a lot. I think I'm going to have him beating Kentucky in this spot.
Cool. Riley, would you also be willing to put Santa Clara to beat Kentucky? And if so, why?
I think I would. I mean, I don't watch a ton of high majors, so not too familiar with Kentucky, but I like Michael's point about the interior. I mean, not a Santa Clara team with a ton of size. They sort of run it in terms of size. Alan Graves, as Michael mentioned, and Elijah Mahi, I'll give a shout out to as well, who's a strong defender, but neither guys who are going to be able to match up with sort of the physicality and again, size of a much bigger team. And Kentucky just not a team that does a ton in the post this season in particular. So I think that'll give Santa Clara a shot. I mean, this offense is incredibly potent. They put up 100 points multiple times this season against teams like Oregon State, against teams like Loyola Marymount, traditionally pretty good teams in the conference. I say traditionally, like Oregon State's been there for a couple of years, but traditionally a pretty good program. Again, just a really potent offensive team. They are a little bit more maybe mid-range predicated than you'd think for, just a high leverage offensive team in today's college basketball game, scoring 100 points occasionally, beating teams like San Francisco pretty handedly, like St. Mary's in the conference tournament, before falling to Gonzaga late in the WCC tournament. So this is a team that's shown they can compete with the best in the conference this year. WCC obviously always very strong. But I'm excited to see what this offense can do. I think if they can sort of take advantage with guys like Christian Hammond and use Elijah Mahi scoring and rebounding well, and that'll give them a chance against a Kentucky team that, as Michael mentioned, is not particularly reliant on interior size.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, the big dogs, Michigan, Iowa State, Virginia. DeRosa, what's the best case scenario for one of these 3 teams out of the Midwest?
I mean, I think all 3 teams could make the Final Four. Virginia, I probably think you want to avoid the Iowa State matchup just because I think Iowa State is enough to even so, I think one thing Virginia does really well is their guards are really good shooters and they're 2 bigs, Grunlow and Onyenso, just dominant paint protectors, both really good on rebounding on both ends. And Onyenso is one of the best shot blockers in the country. Grunlow isn't as good a shot blocker, but is still a very good shot blocker and really soft hands. Like, he's a good finisher on the rim. This DeRitter is an awesome player versus when you look at Iowa State, one thing that makes them special is Josh Jefferson is a 4 who's able to play in the pick and roll. Like, not many teams have a 4 that can just get out and handle the ball. And they run so much through him, but it's all really good stuff. And they've got shooters surrounding him, and Taman Lipsey is probably the best on-ball defender. I mentioned True Washington, probably second for a guard. I think Taman Lipsey is probably the best defensive guard. And then Michigan has just been dominant all season. They've been worse with that OG Tayson. I don't think losing him will burn them until maybe the Sweet 16, if not the Elite 8. But yeah, I mean, they've been really, really good all season. They have a ton of size up front. I think the bigs in this league, in this region, I think are really going to determine a lot of games. Like even when you look at Georgia St. Louis, the matchup we broke down, it was Robbie Avila versus Santos Zero, right? Michigan, it's Ademara is huge. It's Yaxel's playing on the wing, but like he is a big. Morris Johnson's dominant on the glass. Texas Tech's without JT Toppin. Like that's the big narrative for them. Alabama doesn't have a ton of bigs, but Tennessee, it's Nate Ament. It's they run a lot through Jalen Carey. Virginia, Onyenso, Grunlow. This DeRitter is probably their best player. And then at Iowa State, it's Josh Jefferson. It's Blake Buchanan. It's those guys in the glass. This region has a lot of good bigs. But, yeah, I think the best case for any of those is these teams can make a Final Four. And whenever from there, to get to win 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that kind of wraps up all 4 regions here. Before we wrap up, I'll open the floor a little bit. Any final thoughts? Before the first 4 games tip off, starting tomorrow.
I'll go first. I'll just start it with another fins up. I can't wait to see what the Sharks do in the first round. Obviously, tough matchup, but just excited for them to be back. Other than that, I'll be in Philadelphia, so excited to cover, Furman. I'll get a look at them. Obviously, a tough matchup with UConn. Always a team that sort of turns it on in March, but a Furman team that's got a lot of interior size. I think Cooper Bowser is one of the more exciting players in the country. At the mid-major level, I think he's the leading dunker in the country. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. At least at one point he was. But a really exciting talent. I think a Wright State team, another team I'll get to cover in Philly. Really exciting. We'll get to see South Florida, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So a couple exciting matchups coming down to Philadelphia that I'm looking forward to covering. Some good mid-major stories. Of course, I'll be tuned into Hofstra too. So. I think just the way the bracket was set up, we've got some exciting, potential mid-majors that could be interesting stories here. And I think that'll just make it a really exciting year for, bracket watching and everything, that I cover at Mid-Major Madness. So just thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. A lot of fun. It's the best time of the year, March basketball.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's always great having you on. Hopefully we'll do some more pods, before the tournament is over, and we'll have you back on. But until then, you mentioned Mid-Major Madness. So could you just kind of give a breakdown of where everybody can find you?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Well, first off, you can check me out on Twitter, just at Riley Frain, at RILEYFRAIN. As Sam mentioned, and I mentioned, I typically am writing for an outlet called Mid-Major Madness, which is, our coverage is very mid-major college basketball, men's and women's focused. My coverage specifically tends to be a little bit more East Coast, Northeast. As we talked about before, I was at the A10 tournament. And I do a lot of transfer portal coverage too with my work at the Portal Report. Just a lot of college basketball stuff going on over at my social media accounts, and we'll have plenty of coverage, coming up at the NCAA tournament between me and a lot of my coworkers at different sites all around the country between Philly, Greenville, Buffalo. I think we've even got some Sam Fetterman and a couple others heading to the Final Four for some coverage as well. So even outside of myself, lots of good stuff coming up from March. So definitely check out my page, check out Mid-Major Madness at mid_madness on Twitter too. And anything you can find there. I mean, it's like I said, the best time of year, March basketball. I mean, the coverage is fun and we got lots of good stories coming out soon for sure.
Yeah, such a fun crew over at Mid-Major Madness. DeRosa, how are you going to spend these next, 48 hours before the first round proper tips off? And then after that, where else can we find your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be looking at a lot of number stuff, trying to pick, trying to get the games right, and then getting things wrong, and then having the person who picked on like the cutest mascot or the best looking player or the best looking coach candy. Like that happens every year. But yeah, the game, I think Riley kind of alluded to it. I think South Florida Louisville is going to be a very fun game. Like those are teams that really want to get up and down. And if Mikel Brown isn't playing, I think South Florida should almost be favored in that game-ish. It's pretty much a toss-up. Those two teams that really get up and down the court, shoot a ton of threes. That's going to be a really fun game. But, yeah, other than that, I'll be doing my normal thing, which is whatever the hell I do. I don't know what even you can call it. At Envy the Dream, follow me. And then, Sam, we've done this pod. I imagine we'll be back at some point before the season wraps up. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably be back for like a second chance bracket. I know we got kind of cocky last year and decided to forgo. But I think, no matter how well our brackets do after the first weekend, I think it'll be fun to return and then, kind of regroup and do a bracket after the Sweet 16. So that's probably in the mix. In terms of what else you can find on House of College Hoops over the next couple days, obviously this pod, you can find updated brackets from all of our, House of College Hoops crew. That'll be dropping Thursday morning. So you can see how we picked our Final Four, our national champion. You can compare and contrast with your own, see how you kind of stack up against our writers. And then, just keep following us on all the socials that you see below, at the house_enterprise on X, at house.enterprise on Instagram, House Enterprise on YouTube. For college hoops specifically, you could follow at College Hoops HE on X. For a Big East focus, you can follow at Road 2, numeral 2, The Garden, on X for everything Big East. And, just keep checking back on the Basel Pod. My socials are below. If you're listening to the audio, you can find these linked in the description of your podcast. And, we'll be talking. We'll be watching hoops. We'll be talking hoops, and we'll be writing about some hoops. It's really the best time of year. I hope everyone here participating in this podcast, watching this podcast, listening to this podcast, just enjoys another fantastic month of basketball. So for Riley Frain, Michael DeRosa, I'm Sam Basel. This has been the Basel Pod. And if we can just get one more fins up one more time, Riley, if you want to lead us here.
Sure. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Fins up.
Hell yeah. All right. We'll catch you guys next time.